Beautiful. Well, welcome back to Delicately Wild, everybody. I have Imara with me today, a beautiful sister who is living in Thailand, who I've had a little bit of time to get to know through a mutual container that we were in last year. And I've recently observed her coming out of the spiritual closet. So we're going to have a discussion around this today. I welcome you with such big open arms. And I guess before we begin, let's take a breath in, just dropping into the heart, getting rid of all those nerves, and just setting our intention to have a really clear conversation, a clear container to have this conversation in as we take a breath, breathing in. Exhale slowly. And with our intention to be totally in the heart. So we welcome everybody. Please, again, as always, take what resonates, leave the rest. These are conversations that I feel are important for everybody to kind of begin to grasp how our spiritual landscape and those unseen forces within our reality, whether it be our mindscape or our spiritual scape, really do play a role in our lives. So as I mentioned, Imara has come out of the spiritual closet. I welcome you to the show. Thank you for your time. Perhaps you want to chat about where you came from. I know you came from a psychology background, just talking from a work perspective. Maybe let's begin there, because, you know, that's a really interesting conversation to have had the spiritual experiences you've had, as in activations, Kundalini, and yet still very much came from this paradigm of psychology. So maybe we can go and begin there, and then we'll just see where it goes.
Thank you, Brigitte, for having me here and for this breath to land out, because of course it's the first time I do something like this. So I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, so so I have a background as a psychology. I studied that, so I was trained with this paradigm, right? And also coming from a background of a really traditional way of being raised in a Catholic country, in a Catholic family. So my view and my relationship with God was through that, right?
Yeah.
And then my perspective around mental health, emotions, and the human experience was also kind of tainted by my training as a psychology that is quite long, like 7 years of programming, right?
Yeah,
and then
it's crazy. You know, and yet you get such a recognition for completing this process and getting your degree, and your family feels really happy and proud of you. But I mean, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, and also a few years of working like that in the system, right? And I feel it's also important to address that I was raised by a doctor. So I also come from a family with this background. Yes. So in all my spiritual journey, it's been a very big topic to be able to dismantle all of this paradigm to a point where I completely disengage from psychology, completely disengage from this paradigm of Western medicine, until now I'm able to kind of, through going through all these shadows of both words, spirituality and this other paradigm, be able to integrate it a little bit more. So yeah.
And I mean, if you were at this point to say, your offerings, are you in service offering at the moment, or have you really been just doing your own work? Because of course we live in an interdependent system, and while like you say, you're going through massive paradigm shifts, which we can call shadow work, which we can call the shamanic death, which we can just call death, full stop, exclamation. You know, we're uncovering all of this stuff, and yet we're still living in a model and a timeline and a system that dictates that we kind of got to keep going for financial reasons as well, and maybe even for mental reasons. You know, this is the structure we know. So maybe you can talk us through the delicate balance of moving through. I mean, I don't know where you are in service offerings at the moment, but how long your process has taken you, and what was the, what was the big bang?
Oof. Okay, this question, like, I feel it includes a lot of different aspects. So I stopped offering my services as a therapist when all this started.
Just didn't
Because,
feel in alignment, or you just needed to focus on yourself?
well, both, and also because, okay, I'll do a little introduction. So 8.5 years ago, so in January of 2016, I left my life that I had in my country. I come from Chile. I was working, I had 4 jobs as a psychology in like my private practice and in another in ONGs and schools. And I was very good at my career, had all my life settled, my partner, my everything. And I left to study a master degree to Spain because I had applied to a scholarship. But I then realized I actually made this move as an excuse my soul knew for sure of living what I had as a life, you know. A part of me was already for a while knowing that this lifestyle was already not enough. There was something more. There was a sense. I was always a truth seeker since I'm very young. I was always like a paradigm breaker, but I was still very much inside of the system, right? Well, I drink a little bit of water because I've been with a throat infection. So I left with this excuse and I went traveling. I was like, okay, I have a few months before I start my studies in Spain, and I came to Asia. And I didn't have my awakening yet, but my reality shifted, right? I was like, oh my God, there's more than my little life. You know, it's possible. It's possible to live differently. Like in my mind, there was not the possibility of having something different. Like the only excuses in my surroundings of leaving your country was to keep studying. It was not like possible to, it's crazy, right?
Keep going on that linear path.
Yes.
Getting credentials left, right, and center.
And to be successful in my career, in my country, you really need to have a couple of master degrees, maybe how do you say in English, PhD. And then you get like escalating. So this was like the focus, you know?
Wow.
And so I feel I had this excuse to go, but then I realized, oh, there's people traveling. Like in other countries, it's more common to have like, especially European countries, like young people go and travel. In my country, it was not so common by then, like 8 years ago. So I started meeting more travelers and I started discovering this, and I start feeling free for the first time in my life. And I remember I'm in an island now, and I was in the island next door. And I remember I was scuba diving, and then I came out and I start crying of the joy of the freedom I was experiencing for the first time.
Goosebumps. Oh, well, we call them truth bumps.
Truth bumps, I love that. And I was like, what if actually working for a few months because I was in this travel, right? And I was with my savings. And then I took the decision of not taking my scholarship and kept traveling. I'm not going to go in details of how I did that traveling and stuff, but then I keep traveling for a while. And then I lived in Australia and I was working. My mindset was I'm going to work a lot to keep traveling.
Got you.
But I wanted to, so I started already sensing the existence of something else.
Yes.
Right? There was something else.
And you felt that coding of freedom within you, and then also the exposing of other truths, because obviously there are multiple truths, but the exposure to other truths, meaning my life doesn't just have to fit into this paradigm. Yeah, beautiful.
Other types of seeing the world, of everything. But so my conviction was traveling, but it was also I wanted to keep being a psychologist. This was still my narrow mind from that moment.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
expanding, but it was still much more narrow than now, right?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting to now be talking about it and realizing it. And I wanted to become this holistic therapist, right? I'm gonna go to India and study different stuff and understanding a little bit more about this. Because I've already, since young, I was very connected. But this was very repressed for many, many years, as many of us, right?
Yeah.
Conditioning and everything. But what happened, and this is where psychology, your question could meet now. When I was working as a psychologist in Chile, I started noticing that there was a higher intelligence that was guiding me through the sessions.
Got you.
That I was not actually using the techniques that I've been taught.
Learned. Yeah.
And there was something bigger that was guiding me. There was like another field happening there. There was things I would know how to ask or knew about this person when he came to me. So I realized there was something beyond that was guiding me.
Yes.
There was a force, and I could see images and I could understand, but it was still like this.
Mm.
I was like, oh, there's another field of traditional psychology. You know, I want to explore this. I want to understand. And I did like a Reiki course and like things like this. And then I left. So my conviction was traveling, working,
Yes.
traveling, making a lot of money, and be able to be fully immersed in India to understand this. I had India in my mind for some reason.
Of
Yes.
course.
Right?
Yeah, like many people do in the beginning of their journey. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And it took me like 6 years to get there at the end, but it was not meant to be. Yeah, whatever.
Wow.
So then the journey took me to another direction, and I kept working as a psychology in Australia sometimes, but the degree was not really like for a legal stuff, it was not really possible. So I was
Got
working
you.
in blah blah blah.
But
And
that's interesting. So you said it wasn't really working because of legal stuff, meaning administrative things, because you didn't get your degree in Australia, right? So from a bigger field perspective, from a quantum field perspective, it's kicking you out and shoving you to a different space. Yeah. Got
exactly.
you.
And actually, it was very amazing for me to be able to work in many other different things. Like this was
Yes.
part of the working holiday experience. I don't know if you know about this.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
really fun for me to work as a housekeeper, whatever, many other things, and travel
Yes.
and not have this. And then I started realizing maybe it's not something I want to do anymore. You know, this
Yeah.
started moving inside of me. But as I'm a Capricorn, I was like, no, I need, like, it's the only way. Like,
Yeah.
how it's possible that I will drop my career that I invested like more than 10 years of my life?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh? No, no possible. But God really had other plans for me. And well, let me try to, because I can get very in many directions.
Yeah.
So you asked me, how about my service? Yes, so slowly I stopped offering this. By then it was not really common to do Zoom.
Yes.
This, so it
Yeah.
was not a
Yeah.
possibility. Actually, I was really happy to have less responsibilities in my life. Like being a psychologist was a lot, and I was having these like basic jobs that could allow me a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I
So
became
it's
a hypnotherapist.
interesting as well, those of you that are listening, if this is the first video that you've come across, like freedom and truth have been mentioned here. And like these are big, 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 like just markers of, that which we call star seeds or intuitive souls or, angelic spirits on this planet. We want the truth. We want freedom. Those are the like true north points. Yeah. And we
Oh, thank
want love. We want love. Yeah.
you for emphasizing this, because it's been really the catalyst, some of the catalysts of my journey for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Going through.
Yeah.
Even my name, like my given name from my parents, means freedom. So it's been also
Oh,
interesting.
really? Mine is strength, which I find very interesting based on the fact that I, you know, for the last 10 years have been holding shamanic space serving medicine, which is like, you know, a ridiculous venture when you think of the size of the space that you are holding for a big group. You know, group ceremonies was what I did, and I mean also private, but I love group ceremonies. It's just such a powerful space, and there's a certain strength that is required. That when I was also looking at the meaning of my name, the one part of it was the high one, so like a priestess, like the high one, or strength, and I'm just like, yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. And yours is freedom. Amazing. And so we see how these codes are like, they're there all at any point in time, and only when we go back in the memory, like looking at, you know, our actions and our interactions within our lives, are we like, oh, then we can see the markers, and we're like, oh wow, that was always there, that's always been there, that's always been there. But I mean, through your journey, I have no doubt that there was like massive, I mean, we could call it trauma, but also pressure from the perspective of your family and parents, right?
This took me a lot of work to
I
be
can
able
imagine,
to.
because I can actually feel like the energy of your family, particularly your father. And it's, yeah, maybe chat through that, yeah.
Actually, it's my mother, the
Oh,
professional.
really?
Yeah, but it's interesting because the roles in my life, like my mother has been more the masculine role, and my father is
Ah,
Sama. So it's very interesting.
but I
Maybe
was going
this
to
is
say, I'm feeling this masculine aspect. Yeah, well, my mom was the same. It was like, yeah, she's wearing the pants for sure.
yeah, and it took me so many years to actually say, wait a minute, I don't want to go back to Chile. I don't want to go back to have a 9 to 5 job as a psychologist. In this moment where I'm, the timeline, I mean, the time where I'm speaking now, when I was in Australia, I still had the thought like this period of my life will finish in a couple of years and I will go back to that. You know,
Yes.
it took me so long to like, wow, such a deep programming. And this, it's like some also of my biggest passions, like the deprogramming of all of this,
Yes.
you know, it's been my journey as well.
Because I was just about to say to those of you that are listening, wherever you at on your journey, you may receive this word programming a lot in any of my contents, and deprogramming those paradigms. And this is really what a lot of light workers do. Well, all of us do it, but some of us are super passionate about it. And you'd already called yourself like a systems buster, mold breaker. This is also that freedom that we look for, and we see the limiting cube program, and we're like, no, let's step out of that, create a spiral, understand that it's all a spiral, and just breathe and let go. And it is, I just want to share with you guys, like it takes a long time. You know, when you've unraveled that program, then amazing, you can see it for what it is, but and you can laugh at yourself about it. And that's the beauty of it, is this laughter and just genuine innocence. But when you see how long it took you to kind of unravel, we begin to observe how deep the programs are, and those programs are linked to agendas, and those agendas are linked to the opposing frequency that is sovereignty. So, you know, it does take a long time to unravel. So if any of you guys are unraveling it, I send you so much love, and I want you to know that at some point you'll get there, and keep going.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah.
I think it's very beautiful that you address this in our conversation, because a big part of my journey, it's been this fight inside of me because it's taken me so long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like there's this mind concept of it has to be in certain, like, you know, by
Yes.
this age, I
And
should be already
linear.
started. Yes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, you asked me like how long this has taken you. I feel I've been in this journey since I'm born. Like if we go that's
Correct.
for another conversation, but like all the
Yeah.
trauma, everything that, yeah, we all carry.
Yeah.
But this, if we name it as the dark night of the soul, I feel I'm just starting to come out of it. And it has
Yes.
taken proper 6 years,
Yes.
like 6 years.
Yes.
And
And it's those limiting beliefs, right, which in essence are indoctrinated into paradigms, which the mental body is looking to figure out in all the linear ways, but it's just like, no, no, no. You're going to keep coming into cubes. And what does a cube do? You know, it's a corner. It's not a natural flow. So I'm grateful because I felt, I felt within your experience, your dark night has been long. It's been long. It's been long. So thank you for your work. But what comes on let's chat about that. What's come on the other side of that? Where are you at now?
so I literally feel only 10 days ago, I'm starting to come up. Like you arrived really in a moment when I'm like starting to come out. Of course, it's not being like these 6 years have been just horrible, you know. Of
Yes, of
course,
course. Yeah, yeah.
by the biggest confusion, the biggest doubt, I feel, and I pray, I hope it has passed, right? Like when the container you were talking about that we were together,
Yes,
this pulled me back again
yes,
in a space of a lot of confusion and doubt.
yes,
Like, and this confusion and this doubt comes from this programming,
yes,
another layer of this programming,
yes,
right? Of very deep layers of trying to control my reality, and in this, like the resistance of surrendering to our path. This is
yeah,
it. Because what these years, so my big awakening, I would say, was 5 years ago. And since then, maybe we can talk about that
yes. What
also.
happened? Yeah, please do. I think it'll be helpful for people.
Wow.
Because
Okay,
it's
this is,
what I'm sharing on this podcast is how different people awaken in different ways, right?
yeah.
So I think yours was a big boom, whereas others is going to be this subtle experience. Others are through deep, deep trauma, and again, we all have trauma, but some of them are so subtle that you may go through life not even realizing that you had it. I've just gone through this recently where I've just identified something and I'm like, wow, that was so subtly there, and yet it's caused such mayhem in my life. But it's there. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is, every soul has a different blueprint. Every soul has a different contract on how to get there within the one, right? So share about your experience. You
Yeah.
said 5 years ago.
Yes, so it was August 2019. I know very well. Of course, I had like small glimpses before, right? And
Yes.
I remembered 6 months before that, I was in a festival, but it was like a healing festival, and we were doing a group meditation, and I had my first proper visions.
Yeah.
And I was there, and I felt and I saw my ancestors around me putting the hands on my shoulders, telling me, "You're gonna start something now, and we will be liberated by you."
No
Super.
pressure.
Wow.
No pressure, baby girl.
No, super chill. And like my mind, it was like, okay, do I believe this now? Whatever. And I feel I have to like talk about this because, so I'm not going to go into details, but I come from a family of doctors and artists, but a family that carries a lot of trauma and a lot of mental health issues,
Okay.
suicide,
Yes.
depression, alcoholism, whatever. And
Yes.
I always remember telling my mother that I was not going to have children until this finished.
Yeah.
Without knowing what I was saying this. And I was a high sensitive kid always and very connected. And I was medicated with antidepressants and anxiety pills for since I'm 12 until, yes, 17 years. Yeah. From one
Oh, my
psychiatrist.
heart always breaks when I hear these stories, and I know that it's part of the path. It was part of your path. It's designed and created by you, but wow, it always, like, even now I have the truth bumps, right? It always like breaks my heart, like how much medication is just handed out, and at 12 years old.
Yes. And with this label that we are in this family, that we have like this genetic depression, and it's part of us, and it's going to be like this forever, and we have to take the pills like everyone else.
Yeah.
But also I was the black sheep, so it was like even more, you know.
Yes.
So I know part of my path is not only all of what we share, but also like bridging
ancestral healing,
mental
yeah.
health. Yes, mental health, bridging it with spirituality, because I had like a couple of uncles that committed suicide because they had awakened, and they were like, one was internalized and diagnosed as schizophrenic. I was lucky. I feel like what I chose in this lifetime was okay to take these pills and everything, but that I was never internalized, you know. But I took these pills for many, many years, and at some points of my life there was 5 different pills, 6 different pills, going to psychiatrists from this, from there, because like I was so full of emotions, and I was super connected, and I was bringing information, it was not ready to be received, and many other stuff. And slowly with the years I start dropping them one by one. And when I start traveling, I felt really good, because even though I had all these pills and all this therapy, I never felt really happy.
Yeah.
There was always something missing. There was always something inside of me that is like, there's something more, like I need something more. So I was always like unhappy really with my life. I was functioning, like I was really smart, really good at my career, had my partner, my social life, but inside, no. And I was completely medicated.
Yeah.
You know, so when I start traveling 8 years and a half ago, I felt happy. I felt fulfilled. I started to, intuition, synchronicities, freedom, la la la. And this, and okay, and like, maybe I'm ready to start dropping the pills. And I start one by one. I think I was taking 3 different pills, one by one, because you have to do it really gradually. Like I tried before, and it was from 0, like from 100 to 0, and it was horrible.
Yeah, disastrous. Please, guys, do not do that. It's not healthy.
Oh, and please get support if you're doing it. I wish I would have done it.
Yeah.
Because I was traveling, I started dropping in little by little. And when I was in my last pill, like imagine it was 1 pill, and I was dividing it in 4, and I was taking 1/4.
Yeah.
This is when I got the visions.
Got you.
Yeah. This I will understand later, that actually my connection to source was dormant. It was still there, but it was mainly dormant because of these pills.
Correct.
And my awakening happened, this is my theory, right? Because I finally detoxed my body from this.
Yes.
And I was in touch of
your full frequency, without any distortions layering through your body. Yeah.
But as my brain has been 17 years in pills, it was also like super shocking for my system.
Yeah, of course.
So when I start,
you went through a tough one. You've gone through a tough one. Oh, brave soul, brave contract. Oh, Imara. So much compassion for you.
Thank you. And now I have compassion for myself. But in this moment, I didn't understand what was happening in my system, to be honest. Now I can talk about it. But in this moment, I dropped the pill, and I start feeling depressed. So after 3 years of traveling, 2.5, that I was like super high, traveling all the time, meeting people, adventure, I started feeling depressed again. I
Mm.
started feeling a lot of stuff coming up.
Mm.
And I was already in a journey of yoga and meditation, but not very deep of all what it means, shadow work, shamanic
Correct.
journey,
Yeah.
like going to the underworld, like really alchemizing. I didn't know.
Yeah.
This started happening inside of me, and my system collapsed, and I was diagnosed with an autoimmune chronic
Of
condition.
course you were. Just to top it all off, of course you were. Yeah. Yeah.
And it happened because my father came to visit to me in Australia, and this triggered a lot of trauma. And one day my body stopped functioning. Like I could not move. I was in full pain.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, you have what's happening, confusion, doctors, you have this. They labeled me. And this was the moment where I feel I chose the path that I'm walking right now, because
New
I said,
timeline. Yeah.
yes. In me was because they told me you can have these pills, like there's no explanation really for what you have. We haven't discovered like all these mysterious autoimmune stuff. The only solution is these pills, that it's for pain, and you will have to take them forever. And in me was like, no way. Like I just finished 17 years of
Yeah.
pills. I know this is like I just had the vision of my ancestors. This was triggered by my father's visit, so my own trauma. I
Yes.
know this is beyond, and I'm gonna start now a quest.
And what's fascinating about this is that, because you said this is 5 years ago, you'd been studying, psychology in your career for almost 10 years. So within all of this, it feels to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it feels to me that nothing that you studied was there as a sense-making tool for you to be like, oh, okay, this is happening. And that's what I think fascinates me, because and it doesn't matter if it's psychology or whatever, it's all subject matter needs to weave in the higher dimensional aspect of everything is energy, of consciousness, for us to really be able to implement a subject matter and for it to work in a blooming way, rather than just these like diagnosis treatment. I think that's fascinating. I mean, you went through so much, and through your father coming in and being like, oh, now you know, but you didn't know it at the time, like, shit, my nervous system has gone into sympathetic breakdown. I'm in complete hyporegulation. I'm literally having a nervous breakdown. It is because da 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 na 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 na, and this is why it's happening. But all of your studies, you were just like, holy shit. And the one thing that was your guiding star was the ancestors coming to you in the meditation. That was like your link at the time, right? Carry on.
Yeah. So I agree with you 1,000%. Like I was in therapy a lot of my life, and I studied this. So of course there's like an understanding that I had. There's a language.
Cognitive.
I was really good, exactly, cognitively, to understand my defense mechanism, my ways of behaving, what this trauma brought me. Like I'm able, and I was always able to understand, but there was something that was beyond that, and I knew it.
Yeah.
And there was something all my life that I knew there was beyond that.
Yeah.
And I always had like a very strong intuition that got more, how do you say
Find.
it? More fine through the years. But in this moment was the visions of the ancestors for sure. But it was always like a voice inside of me that was like, this is, you're going to start your journey now. And this is it. And there's something more that you've always wanted to understand. Like I was always, as I said, thirsty for truth. I knew there was something more.
Yeah.
I knew. And this was the moment that I was like, okay, this is it. So I could understand psychology. I made the peace with her, with
Yes.
this paradigm. It helps at
Yes.
certain degree, like this. But there's
Yeah.
no way I could be now where I am and not have been internalized of or drive crazy if I had not gone through all of what I went through, that it's basically reestablishing my connection with source and knowing, yes.
Which is that spiritual part of your journey, which is beginning to understand consciousness, which is beginning to have faith in
Yes.
faith in the unseen, and beginning a relationship with God or source, or your ancestors, whatever you want to call it. But it's that faith in the intuition, which is all the unseen, and all the trauma is sitting in the subconscious. So it's just so fascinating. It's like how much of our reality construct is dictated by that which we cannot even see. And because of that, it requires this level of faith that is so profound, because you have to listen to that little voice inside of you. It's wild. It's wild. It's wild.
Wild. It's wild. And for sure, at this moment, I didn't have this faith. There was a voice, but this faith has been built through these 5.5 years, because of the heaviness of this journey.
And also, I think because you tried everything else. There was nothing left for you other than to be, shit, I need to listen now, and because nothing else has worked, right? So, and this is often how people find a shamanic practitioner or something. It's like the last point. They've tried everything else, I wanted to share a story with you. One of my clients many years ago, he'd done ceremony work with me. He'd been on his medication for, I think, 30 years. And after ceremony, I said, obviously he had to prepare beforehand, but after ceremony, I said, look, you've still got to go through a titration process to get off of your meds. And he said, yes. And I intuited that he wasn't following protocol. And I called him and I said, look, I have a feeling you've just stopped your meds completely. And I just want to, reiterate that is not something that I align to. And I'm just trying to get you to, like, where are you at? And he was like, no, I've stopped. I'm good. And he said, for the first time in my life, I feel sad. And do you know how happy that makes me? Because all emotions were shut off. So for the first time in 30 years, I feel sad. And do you know how happy that makes me? I was just like, and such is the paradox of this earth experience, right?
Oh,
wild. But what happened? So you were in the hospital because you then said no to this treatment process of here's the pain meds and all of that. Where did your awakening move from there?
Okay, so I wanted to address something, because this, I feel what you said before of this story with this person and the medication and this paradigm, it's designed for us to function in that system, right? So it will keep you, like, it's useful, and but for people to keep going in this wheel and in this system, and in this moment, I knew I could come back to pills, I could come back to Chile, and I could come back to my life, but there was this part, is like, I'm not meant for this. When this is breaking.
It's a choice point.
And the interesting thing is that the medication never numbed my emotions. I was always very, very emotional. This is also something interesting. But anyway, so I was in Australia.
For me, how I explain that is, having done the work that I do, I explain that there's an aspect of, like, the higher dimensional aspect of you. So that God avatar, Krystic aspect of you is so adamant to reach communication systems that no matter what you do, it's gonna go hello, 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 hello. Because again, we all have a coding here, yes, within the one, but we're all here to experience that God energy within our coding in a different way. And I know it from my ex-husband as well. He used to have huge addiction issues with cannabis, as in wake up at 3 a.m. to hit a bong, to not dream, so that he can avoid and bypass everything all the time. And with him, even all of the addiction stuff, those dreams would still come in. And I was like, there's no running away, So yeah, it's interesting to observe just different people's codings. And I think that's what it would have been for you, is like the avatar aspect of you is going, no, 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 no. Knock, 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 knock.
I really love this what you're saying. I haven't like considered that. It's super beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
It almost made me cry
Oh,
because
it's
it's
a
thank you.
pleasure.
Well, so I was in Australia. My visa was finishing in a few months. I just turned 30, so it was also like a crisis. I was like 30. I'm in the country where I felt home. I've never felt home in my country, but in Chile. Here I felt home. I felt freedom. I became a hippie in this moment. So I was living in my van. I was living in nature. It was like another.
Yes.
And I'm in this country. I have to leave because it's really hard to stay in this country.
Yes.
Like I could have done it, but also there was a part of me that was moving me. You have to leave. So I was like also in this crisis of life. I'm 30. I don't know what I want. I'm starting to get depressed. I'm super confused. Like I'm very, very confused. As you said, my nervous system was like, I could not think clearly. I was foggy. I was depressed. I started gaining weight. Like I didn't know what to do with my life.
Just the hypo-regulation. Yeah.
I knew I didn't want to go back to my country. Like the relationship with my family, not so good. So I basically felt I was alone in the world.
Because I was going to say that's an experience that many of us feel is, although we seek freedom, and when we have it, sometimes it's such a big space, so time space feeling, that you can feel really like, you know, a little stone in the ocean that's just being washed up onto shore and crashed and going back to the ocean. You know, there's such stability, and it's those like creation mechanics within your energy field that you have no idea exist at this point in time. You may have done your Reiki course, but it's like you don't know how to stabilize your field at this point. You've had a choice point within your soul contract, but you don't know any of the mechanics at this point. So again, it's like, just to reiterate how brave we are as human angelics on this planet. It's just crazy.
It's crazy. I didn't know nothing.
Yeah.
Like I felt the presence of love and God in nature. I was doing yoga, meditating. This was my spiritual journey at the moment. I had no idea about anything else.
There's no embodiment. Yeah.
Nothing. And all these start coming up. There was this depression and all my shadows and my traumas and stuff. And I had to make a decision where I want to live, what I want to do. Well, I needed to get my shit together. And I had a few months there left. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna heal this. And I was like, oh, in a few months. Yeah, right. 5 years later, here we are. And I started going through some like healers and stuff, like investing in this energy work, but nothing, you know. I at this moment, like I felt I needed someone outside to really tell me what was going on. And nobody would really tell me what was going on. It was like a lot of time wasting and supplements.
I mean, that aspect of your life in this moment now would have been the teaching phase or the classroom of what you would call now understanding where false light healers and traps come in, which obviously didn't help you then, but you understand it now. And so the reason I mention this is, again, to share with you guys that time is not linear. Time is not linear, and we have these teachings that come into our soul, into our soul space, our physical space, that we may only recognize, what exam we were writing 5 years later or 10 years later. But this is the again, the paradox of this life. It's delicately wild, guys.
I'm loving your inputs because actually it's kind of like putting glue to chapters of my life.
Yeah.
So I started getting more and more depressed, more and more confused, but I was thirsty to heal and to understand. And I knew there was this, I understand this now, but I have the sense that if I was able, and I started listening about awakening, I had the sense like if I would awaken and see the truth, I would be healed. Now I know that was also not true because it happened. And then now I know it was also not true. So I was still trying to heal myself, trying to understand this, very confused, but still with my conviction, oh, I had saved this amount of money and I have to make it to India to study and kind of like really structured, right? To make this and then go back because I don't have enough time because I'm 30, whatever. So I left Australia when my visa finished. And I had a stop in Bali before India. And I was like, I'm just going to be here for a week. I'm going to visit a friend. Perfect. I arrived there. Can I tell my story? Like, okay, this is when the big awakening. I see my journey with two major moments, and this is the first one. So I arrived to my friend's house in Bali. Like, and I was seeing all these the Balinese scene of spirituality. I was coming from like hippie, forest, the Aboriginals of Australia, others type of connection to Ubud. Fancy people talking about like awakening at the goddess and Shakti and all these, you know, all beautiful. And I was just there in this bonfire looking at the full moon, just feeling really not from there. And I was listening to these people talk. And they were talking like, when was your Kundalini awakening? And they were sharing their experience. And I remember inside of me feeling less. And I was like, I haven't had my Kundalini awakening yet. Right? And there was this man, which is an important part of the story, that started sharing his experience that his awakening was in Tulum. That I also had an experience there 10 years before. Was one of my first experiences, also doesn't matter. And he was telling his story about his awakening, and my body starts shaking.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening? I've never experienced something like this. Until then, my knowledge about Kundalini was what we read, like, it's this energy that flows through the chakras and you can do Kundalini yoga, that's it.
Yeah.
I've never heard about light language in my life. Never. Never, nothing. And my body started moving. And I was scared. And this man looked at me and started speaking light language and tell me, come tomorrow. I'm holding every day my meditation, 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. for free. This is my like service to the world. Come, you're ready. Something like this is. And I'm like, okay. I was there next day. He explained he was a devotee to the divine feminine, to Shakti. All of this is like teachings that I don't know if I resonate anymore, but in these moments brought me something, right? And he was like, I'm holding this meditation. Forget about what you know of meditation, of like Shiva meditation. He called it like consciousness, like we want to be blind, basically.
Yeah.
This is a meditation where you just allow the divine feminine to flow through you, Shakti.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. So I sit there with like 4 other women. And 5 minutes later, my body started moving. And I felt the energy inside coming up. It reached my third eye and an explosion happened. I could not control myself. I was doing asanas that I never done. And I start speaking all these languages, like different languages, super fast that I've never heard before. I start singing. This is where my journey with the voice started also. I start singing different tones I've never reached ever before.
I know what that feels like. Yeah. You're like, wow, I didn't know I could sing opera.
What's happening inside of me? And it was very long. It felt scary, but at the same time, I felt it was the most beautiful thing that could ever happen to me. And suddenly I felt this white light presence hugging me. And it felt like God, the Divine Mother. It felt like a feminine presence hugging me. And I was just like crying of joy and love and gratitude. And wow,
Yeah.
this was my first one. Yes.
Wow. Wow. And you said there was a second.
Yes. The second one was in also August, 2 years later, but it
Okay.
was through love making with my
Got you.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was similar, but it included him.
Yes.
Yeah. So it
Yeah.
was quite special. And I've been already, after this first one, I was already 2 years in an intense journey with the light language and everything. But this second one opened a doorway. After this experience, in this moment, I had a month of a lot of darkness. And this was when I feel my third eye and my crown completely opened.
Yeah.
Because it was a month where I could not be outside my house. It was literally this, like the first one was intense because it was the first one, and it opened my, like I start healing emotionally. I start like singing, doing the light, like I start painting, I start dancing, like a lot open. And I start going to healing of traumas of this life. There was like an opening of a higher intelligence that was purifying me from things of this life, but I still also didn't know. And I was constantly opening and closing this channel, opening and closing this channel. But it brought me to music, it brought me to many different things. And the second one opened me. This is when when I open a portal without warning, or I don't know how to say it, but for a month, I was every night traveling between dimensions, traveling to past lives, traveling to the memories of my ancestors, seeing like the veil was completely gone.
Yeah.
There were nights that I would see entities, demons here, and I would see, I don't know, I saw Jeshua, I saw Mary, I saw like everything was there. So I was experiencing all spectrum, contact with other beings. But it was so intense. I could not walk the streets. I had friends having to bring me food because I could not function.
Would you describe that experience as a psychosis in our usual terminology? Yeah. Right.
So this was the interesting thing when I started receiving information, because I started really receiving so much information. I have everything written. And one of the most clear things that was given to me was this, is like psychosis has been the awakenings. And yes. And I didn't know this before, and it was like they kept us dormant because they have labeled psychosis as something that is wrong,
Correct.
The interesting thing is like I also match with astrology. I have a lot of earth placements. So even though I was in the psychosis, there was still a part of me that was here and that knew that this experience was an experience that was going to pass. And it felt scary as fuck. I doubted many times, but a part of me was so sure that this was divine and this was grace.
Well done.
I don't know how, because
but it's very interesting because how I've observed, I also have a keen eye around psychosis, psychotic experiences, and souls that go through it that then shut down. And so let's say the psychosis is also a choice point, right? Much like your second activation there took you to this month of needing to stay indoors and a psychosis, right? It's not easy. It's not easy at all. But there are so many souls out there that'll have that psychotic experience and then move to the blocking of all those chakras, which I understand why they would want to do that, because they've just had the whole universe's Akashic move through them. But then what often happens from there is, so let's say it's a choice point, an indoctrinated path then gets chosen. Let's say through the deliverance, through Jesus or Christianity, or we're shutting it down completely. And that's interesting to me, because I'm just like, oh, if we began to understand the creation mechanics and how to then, because as much as the psychosis is also the awakening, it's also a huge, 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 huge exam room to test you, because, and I assume a lot of what you spoke about in the beginning with regards to our mutual container that we were in, where you said, even in there, you were facing things that you didn't quite understand, and you were like, well, do I believe this thing or do I not believe this thing? What I'm assuming, that would be an assumption, is never good, but what I'm assuming that conflict was, or resistance was, about the one, right? You being the creator of all of it, and also the observation that many of the entities or beings that would have come to you during that psychosis are in fact like astral kind of copycats of ascended master frequencies, etc., etc. So we would call them false, so it's like a false, these beings coming to you as false masters. And so even though you're open, I feel like it's this timeline moment where it is simultaneously an awakening, but also an exam room of a test, because we are in a spiritual war. And there are so many astral beings that come through people with psychosis, like Yeshua and all of this. But when you move to the other teachings, like our container, and we move to the law of one, all of that falls away, and we command the space, and we call that Metatronic. And so I guess my curiosity lies in, so obviously, I mean, just to kind of sort of wrap things up, we'll still flow here, but so you've had this month period of psychosis. I assume there was some sort of integration process afterwards, which would have led you to, again, different teachers, different spaces, all marking certain things on your soul cartography. I call it soul cartography, on your soul's map, to teach you certain things, up to the container where we met, where again, all of that information you start to question again. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, yeah, all of these teachings that you're referring now of the law of one, for me, are quite new.
Yeah.
Like
And
less
they're
than
big. I mean, it seems simple as just the law of one, but the way it's,
yeah.
what do they call those series? Mind benders. The way it bends your mind, and again, also pushes you into shadow, because you're like, there's no separation, It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, and I'm still kind of like integrating this, because
Of course.
as I say, like this journey of this year, so I refer this as a month, that the month was intense, but all this process has lasted until now,
Yeah.
like it was such a, like my life completely changed. Like
Of
it's
course.
been a journey of everything, and it was like my body was plugged to, as you say, information so much, but at the same time, an amount of electricity that my
Yes.
body was not able to hold. The
Correct.
first one and the second one. And I'm still, for example, dealing with how to regulate my nervous system. It
Yes.
fried me.
Yes.
Because,
Yes.
yeah, also like
Yes.
I had these experiences, and a part of me was doubting, and a part of me all this time has been doubting, is this grace? What is this, and a part of me like completely surrendered to this. So I've also been opening to this to move through me, and for years I had sleepless night of information coming through, sleepless night of having to deal with stuff, of trauma from my ancestors coming, of past life, like, and I could not decide. Like it's been years of not
Because I
really
was going to
having.
say, it's so interesting. It's like, so you have always been a sensitive and an open channel. However, you were probably not an empowered open channel.
And I
Right?
feel I'm still not. I'm
Yeah.
learning.
Yeah, you're learning.
For
For
as
sure.
not until not so long ago, I felt a part of me felt a victim of this process.
Of course. Thank you for sharing that. Of
You know,
course. And I
yeah,
want to just make a note there, many people's spiritual journey, or all of our journeys are different, as I've said. And for me, I've been so like, just inquisitive and inspired by, the mystical and magical. I always say that. But for some people, it can seem like the biggest burden and cross to bear. And yeah, like you say, that the word victim is very powerfully used there and powerfully placed. And I'm grateful you speak to that because, yeah, to move past that now as a coding and program is huge. It's huge.
yeah,
And the thing is, when we experience these energies moving through our human bodies, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's literally you're plugged into an electric magnetic circuit of the universe. And you're just one you're just one little body. So I get it. I get it. I get it. And again, just like such. And this is why this show is called Delicately Wild, because it's such a delicate process. We're speaking about electrical currents moving through in the form of data and information that at this point, so you're just dealing with that, but at some point in time, then you start to calculate or start to ask yourself the question, is the data that's moving through me, that I'm hooked up to, that I'm connected to, good for me?
exactly.
So here we come into metatronics and inversions and which system am I connecting to, or is it just source as in the fucking one? So yeah, consciousness is forever expanding and these experiences just get, and it's a intense amount of energy, the power, that you feel. No wonder you mentioned that victim word. I totally understand that. I am
Yeah,
too. I've gone through like 8 weeks of shadow now where I'm slowly coming out and I'm like, oh God, I can feel the frequency shifting. I know what I have to do and I'm shitting myself because Brigitte gets out the way, right? And the source energy comes through and I'm like, oh, please be kind, please be kind. But like, you just have to have a strong immune system and nervous system at that time, you know? Yeah.
yeah, and this is where I feel so passionate about I've been had to study now somatics and nervous system and many other stuff because it's all so related. Like I
Yes.
know when the awakening came, my system was not ready. I
No.
was just taking the pills, everything, like I feel this could have been much easier if I was in another point. But of course, it was all
Of course.
part of, I don't know.
You created a dramatic story for yourself.
Yeah, I wanted a little bit of drama, apparently, to have
Yeah.
like a Hollywood movie, whatever, yes. But
Exactly.
yeah, it has taken me until now to really starting to make peace with it, because it has been such a level of intensity that I have not been able to have a normal life for sure. And the amount of information, as we said, that I have gone through or that has gone through me, it's huge. And part of it, it's not like I've received beautiful information. The amount of love I've been able to experience with this,
Mm.
it's beyond the beyond.
Thank you for
But
yeah.
also, yes,
Yes.
also the amount of pain.
Yes.
Also the amount of pain. And this is where I'm in a moment where I'm not sure where I stand, because I truly believed I created this, probably, that I needed to go to this purification process for all my lineage, for my past life, for myself, from the meds, from all of these. And this purification process, I had got to go through all of these memories, past life, ancestrals, so much that in the teachings that of the container that your teachings that I'm not super familiar with yet, they're new for me. Basically, it says that if you're plugged into the correct one, you should not go through that, right? But it's how it's been, and it's how it's been my process. And to be honest, I don't feel I could have integrated all of what I had integrated if I wouldn't have gone through that.
Of
And
course.
in moments I've doubted so much, so much. I've been like, stop, close my channel. Like I prayed, close this. I wanted to press the bottom and go, because it's also intertwined with my autoimmune stuff, right? But the most beautiful things when I like, how could I know in this 3D, in this reality, that this, what's happening to me, it's divine and it's source and it's beautiful. And the amount of healing that I've seen in my family since I started this, it makes me to tears, because wow, if I had to do this for all of them, I would do it again. Now that I'm in the other side, I would, because when it makes me super emotional. Like
I've got truth bumps again.
It's all connected with my grandma that passed away a few months ago. She could die in peace. Like my brothers start talking again with my father, my mother with her sister, my mother with her mother, like so much beauty. And me, like before this awakening, I was having a good time in my travels, but deeply, I didn't love myself. I had so much, I had suicide thoughts all my life. And only through this, I've gone so deep in core wounds, not of myself. These are core wounds of humanity.
Correct.
These are like the disconnection from source, from love, from our nature, from truth. These are the things that are so deep. And because I've went through them and alchemized them, I can now be here talking with you. Like, I'm not saying, oh, I'm completely like, oh, I feel amazing. I have
I mean, one thing we do know is that always remain the student and always remain humble, because if there's one thing I know is consciousness is forever expanding and it's constantly evolving, and there's nothing to actually reach because there's no linear time. So best we just remain humble and grounded and to do the best we can, to have a laugh, to meet with friends, to create tribe, and to share stories that hopefully support others through this wacky, wonderful, delicately wild thing we call Earth, life on planet Earth, right?
I completely agree with you.
In the level of ancestral healing that you would have done just based on your coding, you know, and again, like, as you say in this moment, you're still coming through it. You're just coming through it. You just came out of the closet 10 days ago. I grabbed you quickly there. I was like, oh, before she goes back in. Before she goes back in. So I guess I just want to share, it's like this recognition for all of the deep levels of patience and compassion that is required within the spiral of time, because there's nothing to reach. There's no end mark. We just keep moving through as the eternal students and simultaneously gaining mastery based on now sense making of that soul map, you know, and that's where the wisdom comes in. The experience may have been terrifying, you know, or disastrously painful or whatever, but the wisdom now gained helps us with others. And so I think I'm going to kind of wrap it up there. Imara, thank you so much. Such a beautiful story and courageous and not fucking easy.
Not fucking easy, but I wanted to just close it with this. In the moment I'm sitting right now, I can say totally worth it, you
Exactly.
know, because even though I really feel I went into the underworlds of existence and not only humanity, all the galactic wars, everything has gone through me. And it's been hard, but at the same time, as I said before, the amount of love and grace that I've been able to experience. And as you say, like this journey as it has been has kept me humble and will keep keeping me humble. But
Yeah.
to be able to say this, like the amount of wisdom and the because I've had, like, I've never found someone that could guide me in this process. I tried so much to find a teacher, to find a mentor, and no one could. And this
Yeah.
path has forged me to weave a faith that goes beyond everything.
Yeah.
And my connection directly, it's the strongest. And this is why now I'm able to hold this process for others.
Yes.
Like the depth, like my journeys, like when I open these portals of past life shamanic journeys, all this stuff, I have no idea how I learned this, you
Yeah.
know, but it's been through this burn, like really,
Well, it's crazy,
wow.
it's beautiful that we end off weaving this aspect of faith in, because my journey is very similar, and we'll keep going through it, right? Because we keep moving through layers of identity and then moving those layers aside and dropping them, but then standing in to position ourselves in terms of purpose on this planet, and so then re-establishing some sort of label and identity. And what I'm observing, and again, it could just be I'm going crazy, but what I'm observing is it feels to me that there are so few that are working in at a level of integrity. And
This
I
thing.
understand why, because it takes such bravery. But when I say few, I mean like really not a lot at all, right? And whether this be a projection or a misperception, my perception for me is that I am one of those few, right? So, and then of course the gaslighting comes in, because I would say, well, there's 8 billion souls on the planet. How is it possible that I am one of those few? I'm just da 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 who got born here and went to that school. Like, how is it? It blows your mind a little bit, and so what I wanted to say is it's the faith. It's the faith, because I know how I started this journey as well, of just like this curiosity around spirits, and I had faith, and here I am as some sort of guardian, I believe. I don't know, but I believe. But I'm just like, okay, well, for this container, let me put on that hat, And so, yeah, I love you so much. Thank you,
I
Imara.
love you. And
Cool.
it makes me really emotional because I really feel we're in such a pivotal times of humanity. And even for me, it's like, am I one of these, to
Yeah,
believe? But I really, I've been in spiritual community for years, and I see so much lack of integrity, and this hurts me,
yeah.
hurts me. And I wish I would, like, I've met very few people, and you are one of them, and Amara is one of them also. And I wish I could have met you earlier in my journey to have more guidance,
I
but
was going to
probably,
say that's your soul as well, being cheeky as fuck, being like, no, you're doing it on your own. Because
but
remember,
probably I had to go.
your level of consciousness is in your avatar consciousness wouldn't have matched any of the other healers around at the time. And it's why you kept coming up alone.
Yes, and I wanted to say that about my guidance because I could not. Anytime I met the last years, I decided to do it by myself. I received, like, there's also another woman that I received a session from her that I really admire called Mapaya, and um my guidance was always, no, it's you and source. And also to address the integrity part, I could have started doing energy work or doing activations or whatever so long ago, but there was always a part of me is like, you're not ready yet. And my ego was like, but we have this ability, we are awakened, we can do shamanic journeys, Kundalini activation, energy work, blah, 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 hundreds of stuff. And it was like, no, it's not time. It's not time. Wait, be humble. You don't have to do anything. And this has been really a mind fuck for my ego and my like self-esteem as a human avatar. Like, what is my role? I'm not doing it, and just doing little things, knowing of all of this, you know. And I see how much in the place that I live, people get activation or start doing and start immediately working, and how this is so damaging.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, it's part of the creation, and maybe they play a role that we need.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But to really sink so deep in this faith, this trust, this surrender, well, all of the voices, even of your head, are telling you should be doing this, should be doing this is not right, this is not. But there's this inner voice connected to God that says, wait, be still. You will act from your heart when you're ready. You will be in integrity. It's all about the heart.
Yeah.
So thank you. Wow. It's wild.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, everybody, I've got, goosebumps. I'm crying. It's a delicately wild little mixture here. I thank you all so much for supporting. And those of you who know that this type of conversation, this level of frequency is and will be blocked. So your shares, your likes, your comments assist. It is not for me and my ego. I can guarantee you that. Otherwise, I'd be living in a very big house somewhere, and I'm not. I'm nomadic and often stay in a tent. My point is, these conversations are important, and not only are they important, they hold a signature blueprint. So thank you for watching. Imara, thank you for joining, and blessed be on your journey of faith. I hope to meet you in person one day. I'm sure we will. It feels like that. And I love you, sister. Thank you.
Love you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me, for having me, for doing this work, for being integrity. This. Thank you.
And for your bravery. Good luck with your path.
Yeah.